case, contemporary, tomorrow, and IKS. Okay? So that is how we do. And it is also important to recognize some individuals, the process. So once again, these individuals are recognized outside the country more than this country. Maybe it is high time we also recognize them. A few of them, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, I do find very good. Like sometimes we become a little bit attached to our place. Janani Janmabhumische Sargad Pigariyasi, right? So when I met a couple of people from Madras, I felt so good, right? So M.S. Swaminathan is from Madras, okay? Dr. Kota Harinarayana, Dr. R. Srinivasan, we'll talk about it. It's very interesting. So many of us get the benefit of his work, but we don't know him. So we'll talk about it. And things like that, okay? So this is how it is. So I would definitely shut up at about 5:40 latest, okay? About 25 minutes from now. This is important. And so get ready. So all that I would say is fasten your seat belts and get ready for an exciting journey. Okay? So let me start with agriculture. See, what we don't realize is, even Kabir Das had to say, "Bhookhe bhagati na hoi." Right? If the hotte is khali, I don't think we'll be enjoying anything. Right? So first and foremost is agriculture. And enormous things have actually happened on the agricultural front. Particularly, most important stuff is irrigation. Second most important is farm equipment. I just put John Deere. I could have put Mahindra and Mahindra. These days, Mahindra and Mahindra is selling in United States. Very nice thing. Okay. And of course, we built the dams. We'll also talk about it. So these kind of technologies have been very well developed. But I think one technology that made a huge difference, particularly to India, is the high-yielding rice and wheat. Just to give you some numbers. At the time of independence, we were producing X amount of rice and wheat. We are producing 5 times that much. So 5-fold growth. And of course, remember, we are also, population has grown by 3 times. So we have more mouths to feed, but we have more to feed every mouth. And that is the reason why we are all able to sit and relax and enjoy this function. So, and of the many people, one person happens to be special, I thought I should tell you, and my personal experience. I was teaching for a semester at AIT Bangkok. We had students from Philippines, and one of the nice things of academic institution, particularly IITs kind of stuff, is we do a lot of things outside the classroom. I was so privileged to meet one of my former students' father-in-law. And when he introduced, I said, look, 10 minutes back I had a chance to talk to him. And it was so nice. So there is so much outside the classroom. So these girls came to my room and said, sir, we want to meet you. I said, why? He said, sir, we want to tell you that there is one person who made a huge difference to our country. And our country would have been in deep trouble but for him. And he said, look, who is this person? And they said, M.S. Swaminathan. He said, I told him he's from my town. And she felt so happy. And she actually told me that there is something called Rice Research Institute in Manila, which he set it up. And that made a huge difference to the country. So can you imagine individuals making a difference to country? An individual like Swaminathan and his work, of course it's not one person, right? A lot of things. But he was a leader. But the fact that 1 billion people are being able to be fed, and remember, some of you are old enough, you will recall, we have to go through the enormity, that we have to kind of have to beg for bread, FAO, okay? All those things are behind us, okay? But we simply take it for granted. And I keep telling our children, they said, look sir, all these things are interesting, but tell us something more interesting. I tell them that, look, but for this, you can't have your ice cream. Right? Because it's not only wheat and rice, it's also ice cream. And what a difference we have made in this country. We are the largest producer of milk in the planet. Largest producer of milk in this planet. So I think we have done something well. But what we think will happen tomorrow is more interesting. Because what is happening is agriculture is becoming precision agriculture. We, the IT guys, are doing lots of interesting stuff. I will just talk about one simple experiment which I have also been involved, but the person who is driving it happens to be Dr. Kota Harinarayanan. Some of you said you come from Hyderabad. He is in Hyderabad, and he used to be part of the larger mission research, missile research and stuff like that. So there is a startup in IISc Bangalore. What it is doing, it is using drones, very high tech. It will fly low and using very sophisticated cameras will detect if there are diseases or if there are insects which are likely to cause disease to the plant. And if it is not detected in time, the yield can go by 5%, 10%, 20%, even 90%. And if it is immediately attended to, the yield will be the same. Okay? It uses space science because it actually uses NRSA at the background, etc. Let me not tell you to the details. But what is interesting is drone is a high tech, imaging is a high tech, processing is high tech. More interesting stuff. While these kind of technologies were available in Israel and United States for farms which are 1,000 acres to 10,000 acres, we are making it available for half an acre. And the farmer will get a message in Telugu, a WhatsApp message in Telugu, please do something about it. More interesting, if the farmer forgets to do, after 2 days, it is still there, okay? It will take the permission and spray it. So it will detect, it will spray, it will detect, it will correct. Okay, so things like that are happening. So I just thought that is something you should know. Of course, genetically modified crops is another stuff which is a little bit controversial, but nonetheless, we don't know how things will shape up. So things are happening. But I want you to know, this is something which quite often we don't realize as part of the IKS. You know, everyone knows KRS, everyone knows Bakranangal. But what we don't realize is, there is a dam called Kallamai, Grand Anaket, built in 150 years before Christ. Karikala Chola built it. What is interesting is, it works today. Once again, I don't want to become jingoistic. I don't want to tell the world that look, we are great guys, you guys are not. That is, we continue to be simple, humble. Okay? Namaste is our mantra. Right? So we do nama to everybody. That is to be humble. But we can be proud. There is no reason why we cannot be proud of genuine achievements this country has done. It's amazing, right? So I can go on, but I just thought that I will kind of, okay? So let me come to textiles, okay? So something which I keep telling my students, I will repeat it. You know, we guys are called the IT guys, and I keep telling the world, we are the third T when it comes to export. The first T is textiles, started centuries back. The second T, the tea that you and I drink. The third T is IT. I do hope that, I want all the banks to cooperate and help this country. We need to create a fourth T called tourism. Right? So we need to do. But look at Tirupur. See, the world glorifies Bangalore and writes nice things about Bangalore. But I think we should also glorify Tirupur. Stitching bunions, those guys get still billions. They don't get 200 billion, but they still get 8 billion. Right? I think we need to do. But something else is happening. I don't know how many of you noticed. The largest denim manufacturers are in India. Okay? So we are kind of doing a few things well. But soon we will get into this. In fact, right in Bangalore, there is an institute which is set up by Visvesvaraya himself, Silver Jubilee Technological Institute, which has a textile focused institute. We are kind of working with that institute to kind of modernize it. Soon we will have what is called smart textiles. All of you heard of LAN, WAN, MAN. There is something called BAN, Body Area Network. So lots of devices will be there. It's a network. Okay. First and foremost, I'll give you a simple stuff. This hall is cool, right? Heated. One way of looking at it is, it's not the right thing to. Why do you want to cool all the space? If I can cool myself and each one of you individually, I don't have to cool this place. Right? So can you have textiles, smart stuff? The moment you can set the temperature to whatever you want. and you can do more smarter stuff. There are some people who, I'm born in Chennai. Even today, I feel a little more comfortable in a warm climate than a cold climate. There are people from Minnesota who actually want minus 20 happily, right? So who want cold stuff, okay? So you can actually adjust it. And, we are actually doing some interesting projects for defense and all. See, why do you first allow the dust to accumulate and then put it in a washing machine? Can you generate textiles which will not accumulate dust? Then you don't have to worry about washing. Right? It's actually doable. Okay? It's just not to do. So these are the kind of stuff. Okay? And what is more interesting stuff is, you can actually say, if it is a nice mulligatawk dust, I want it. Right? If it is cow dung dust, I don't want it. So I can do it by software. So we software guys can write software. Right? So that is actually possible. Things like that are happening. But I thought that this is something which once again we possibly don't take notice of. Okay? So Harappa and Ajanta, so we are really talking of millennia. We are not talking of centuries, millennia. And you see, we all go there, watch and take pictures and come. Unfortunately, we don't have the right gates, we don't have the amount of time, and we don't have enough documentation. So there is so much is documented about textiles in all these inscriptions. And I think we as parents don't have time to take our children, explain to them these things are there. We just go there, and sometimes maybe they are not well maintained, etc. People don't take interest. I think this is what something we have to learn from countries like Italy. They do an amazing job of preserving and making it available to the next generation. But something which is very special to me, you all know muslin cloth. Muslin used to have 1200 count. See, those of you in textiles, So just to give you some idea, that the cloths which you and I wear have a count of 40 to 80. So when you do that, you get such fine cloth. You can wrap around you 10 times and still it is transparent. Right? And in fact, this is just amazing, right? So something like, and remember, you are really talking of closer to nanotechnology. And people did not have a PhD degree, but nonetheless they are actually able to do it. What made them do it is something which I want the younger generation to explore. Okay? In fact, it's interesting. Oxford is exploring it. Unfortunately, we, the IITs, are not exploring. Right? So, I think that is a homework for you youngsters. Okay? So, let me kind of get on to roti ho gaya, kapda ho gaya, makan. Okay? Okay. So, cement concrete is one thing which made possible for a large number of human beings to own a house. It's all of us live in a skyscraper, nice house, etc. Without cement concrete, it would have been impossible for us to house billions of people, 8 billion people, 6.5 billion people, depending on whom you ask, the count we will vary. Okay? And I just put that ITPL because that's where we started. Dr. Ravindran knows where we started to play ITPL. I have an emotional connect to ITPL. But I will just talk about one technology. I will spend a minute and then go on to the next one. It is called elevators. Imagine, even this hall, if there are no elevators, okay, how many of you would have felt comfortable climbing up 4 stories? Okay, so it is okay. But imagine if you actually go to Dubai and go to the Burj. Okay, even if you have a lot more energy, there is no way you can walk up 132 stairs, right? So without elevators, just would not have been possible. Okay, I think, but I can give you one course, 45 hours I can teach you on the technology of elevators. That much is there. But I think it is important. And we just take them for granted. Okay, so I think it is important. But I also want you to really look at something that is around the corner. You don't have to go to America or Switzerland. Right in again, our Madras crowd is there, right in IIT Madras, right? We still call it IIT Madras at Chennai, right? So IIT Madras, this is what is called, there's a startup called Tvashka. This is 600 feet house is 3D printed 5 days. We can make it 2.5 days. I can't make it 5 hours, I can make it 2.5 days. But imagine this technology, you can actually make, in 10 years, we can ensure that there are no slums. This is possible. Okay? So a technology that makes it possible to address core life issues. But even more interesting for me, this is something which once again we don't spend enough time. Okay, you all know Brihadishwara temple, 200 feet high. On the top, the little stone is there, which is comfortably 80 tons, 80,000 kilograms. There was no electricity, and they built a ramp which is 6.5 kilometers long and put it. More interesting stuff, how many earthquakes have come? It has withstood, there is not a crack. Okay, and you all know that there is a very something special. You can go and look at Wikipedia. This particular gopuram, you will never find the shadow on the floor. Okay, I tell my software students something very special about this. This took about X number of years, I think 7.5 years or so to build. But what is most interesting is, for 2/3 of the time, they did not have one brick that was built. 2/3 of the time, they were making tools, and in 1/3 of the time, they built it. And that is how we build software today. You take more time to build the soft tools and then build it. So once again, don't have to be jingoistic. But how many of us take the trouble of taking our children and spending some quality time to make them understand something like that has been built by our own forefathers, about which we should be genuinely proud of. I chose the word very carefully. We should be proud. We should be genuinely proud, not jingoistically proud. Okay. So let me come to education. Okay. So this is something which we associate today. The Harvard and IIT Kharagpur and IISc, IIT Kharagpur being the first IIT and IISc the first institute that has crossed 100 years. And today we use lots of interesting technology. All of you in banking, you use core banking. Equivalent of core banking for university is LMS, Learning Management System. So we can track thousands and thousands of students, every course, every lecture, every grade. You can have the transcript, you can push it on a transcript to anybody, you have graduation, collect tuition, scholarships, all that is partly done today very well. Okay, but what we are seeing just around the corner is this. I'm not saying universities will go away, but universities will be impacted in a very different way. How it is, no one knows. Okay, just look at it, 20 years back, if you were all extremely eminent bankers, I don't think you would have actually visualized today's banking 20 years back. Because technology changed completely. We expect something similar to happen. And, I just put two names. Coursera is the largest online store, and Upgrade is something which I feel particularly happy, because Upgrade and IIIT started something which actually started an online revolution in this country. They are the largest online produced education company in the world. Upgrade is 6,000 crores this year. They were zero, exactly 7.5 years back. Right? Things like that happen. But I also want you to not forget, okay, Nalanda University. I particularly want you to realize we had an equivalent of ChatGPT, okay, at Nalanda. It did not use artificial intelligence the way you look at it, but there was one fellow at the gate. He will ask you some questions. If you give the answers satisfactorily, you go in. Otherwise, you get out. Okay. Extremely well done. And we talk about globalization. The doors are open globally. Forget about caste creed. Even the country was not. And if you carefully read Nalanda's history, that person was doing something very interesting. He was sitting below. You can't even see that person. The only thing is you can have questions. So technically, even if you're an animal, you answer the question, you would have been admitted. So we did not discriminate even with an animal. Okay. I think that is what Nalanda is all about. So something which this country did, we should know. about healthcare. Okay? So we done an amazing job, particularly during COVID time. We did the world proud, we did the country proud, right? Covaxin, Bharat Biotech. We have amazing hospitals like AIMS. So a lot of things have happened. Technology has changed healthcare so much. We take it for granted. We just take a tablet and push it in. What is that? Doro 650. Magic works. But behind this magic, so much has happened. We kind of forget. So hospitals, surgery, medicine, drugs, procedures, and of course you bankers, you have done also your contribution. Okay, I'm just taking a little bit of a liberty with you. You have your own negative contribution called insurance. But anyway, but more interesting stuff. We have heart transplant. Right? But I just want you to look at this particular picture. In case you are not able to, I think it is plainly readable. There is one name called Srinivasan. He also happens to be from Madras. What was he doing? The most unexpected place. He is an IBM scientist. Has nothing to do with medicine. And they were doing some experiments, and he, along with two more others, hold the patent for what is called LASIK. And routinely we all do cataract surgery now, right? I still remember when my father's time and all, if you do a cataract surgery, for next several days, you will have some greenish kind of stuff, lots of pain and all. I actually took one of my former students' father. I took him there, and the surgery was done. I brought him back, and then took him home. So everything was done in 2 hours. The patents are maintained, or actually in the name of R. Srinivasan. And what a dramatic change technology has done. Cataract surgery performed in minutes. I don't know how many of you have actually kind of gone through it or looked at it. The surgeon does not even touch. Everything is done by a small little robotic injection. Okay, so that much is there. Okay, and what is happening today? Tomorrow, already robotic surgery is happening. Da Vinci robots are there in at least 60 hospitals in this country. So a surgeon is not even touching you. Surgeon is 5 feet away from the person, and a set of robots actually go do the surgery, stitching, everything happens. And yesterday, if somebody was asking this, I was giving this as an example. I like everything about this. Less blood, faster cure, faster to go home, excepting that there is something which you guys control. More money. That's the only problem with this. So hopefully it will change. Okay. But this is something which, once again, we do not notice. I don't know how many of you notice. I want the ladies particularly to go and take a look at it. Sushruta Samhita actually talks about C-section. So it is not ordinary stuff. It is extraordinary stuff. Right? So I want you to realize. And of course, Charak Samhita talks about Ayurvedic stuff. And I will just also mention one stuff because I am personally involved. Bombay Jayashree, you all recognize her. And she is an outstanding Carnatic musician. She has been going to a village called Manjakudi. She actually found casual observation. Autistic children seem to get some amount of cure through Carnatic music. And then initially she thought it was a coincidence. Then for 6 years she found something was happening. And 1 year she found something even more interesting. The same children do not get positively impacted with so-called, in Tamil we call it dabba music, filmy music. So Shastriya Sangeet cures, filmy Sangeet does not. So it became a research question. She asked me, because I am a professor, right? She said, Prof, you should do something. So one of my colleagues looked at it. He actually found similar stuff has been done in New York City. It is also true of Western classical music. So classical music cures autism. So music is a therapy. And this is something which I'm sure many of you know. Indian ragas are associated with lots of things. There are certain ragas associated with sleep, associated with kind of cure. So, Sangeeta Ratnakara, none of us get a chance to read. You should read, that's all. I'm not once again saying, don't become jingoistic. There could be mistakes. I think Srinivas Shastri had a very nice way of putting it. He said a lot of things are there. Some of them could be wrong. Don't necessarily take all of it. But whatever is good, don't throw it. Okay? So let me say computing. Okay? So I think this is something where I can, as they say, I can talk until the cows go home, because this 50 years of my life, this is what I have done. Right? So we started with a computer in 1973, which was bigger than the size of this hall, but for doing 1/1,000,000th of what this phone can do. Right? So we have miniaturization of 1,000,000 times and performance improvement of 1,000,000 times. So million plus 1,000,000 times is what we are done. So this is SEDAC Parampadma, and we have our own, in computers, we have our own race, just as we have an automotive race. Every year twice we publish something called Super 500. This is a Super 500 as of November 2022. Okay? And what is around the corner? Quantum computers are happening. So some of you who have studied physics, you would know there is something called normal physics and quantum physics. So quantum physics, we thought it is still far away. Suddenly quantum physics is getting to be real. There are already available quantum computers available. So quantum computers will solve problems 10,000 to million times faster. And for you bankers, you all use a password. And you have been told that, look, passwords are encrypted, you can't decrypt it, because to decrypt it you would need 400 years of computer time. When quantum computers come, you can do it in 4 minutes. So we may have to rediscover the password. Okay? So I think, don't worry, we will find solution for it, because our job is to create problems and find solutions. Right? But it's happening. And you already have seen Super AI. Sir, you should read out the poem which ChatGPT. So sir has a nice poem on Karnataka Bank, read out by ChatGPT. Very nice. Maybe I'll ask him to read it sometime. Okay? But once again, I don't want people to forget this. This is my personal experience. Like I found out in Microsoft Museum, something was written. So I was casually going through. And there they have written that this 0 was invented in India. The numerals 0, 1 to 9 were also invented in India, but they went to the rest of the world through Arabia. So because most countries got it from Arabia, they call it Arabic numerals. Unfortunately, our CBSE textbook also calls it Arabic numerals. So, but I said, look, this is what I found in Seattle. But is it really true? Or maybe Seattle fellows have written it. So normally Saudi Arabia is not in your circuit, but sometimes I had very unusual invitation from Prince Mohammed. So they're starting a university called Prince Mohammed University. I went there. So in addition to a lot of things, I sneaked half a day, went to a museum. And lo and behold, I found those museums have actually also documented these 0 and the 9 decimals came from India. When I told my student, he had a very interesting stage. IIM students are smart guys, right? They know how to make money, right? They said, look, sir, we should do something. The whole of IT is zeros and 1. We discovered 0. Right? So for everything, half of it we should charge a patent fee. And we become rich, you don't have to do anything. Okay, so that's lighter line. But I think more interesting stuff, particularly for those of you in Karnataka. Sir, you are a Karnataka bank. So I want you people to discover, make things available. How many of you know there were 2 persons, one is called Bhaskaracharya, other is Lilavati? More interesting, how many of you know Lilavati was Bhaskaracharya's daughter? More interesting, how many of you know Lilavati also happens to be a treatise written by Bhaskaracharya, and he decided to give the name of the treatise in the name of his daughter. And I did meet people from Hubballi. They all lived near Hubballi. And I tell you, I asked 100 students in Hubballi, none of them knew. right? I think we have to change it. Okay, I tell you, it is an amazing stuff. It has lots and lots of trigonometry and stuff like that. Go and discover. Okay, so I will kind of shut up in another 4 minutes. Okay, so material science. Okay, it's interesting, right? So gold is something which you all recognize, but you know, how many of you recognize that in India for centuries, you know, you have this goldsmith. This goldsmith has no great tools. They have something they push, and then there's a little stone. But actually speaking, the kind of work they do is kind of bordering on nanotech. And they need temperatures which are 700 degrees. How they get it, no one knows, but they get it. Right? It's just kind of amazing. And the only thing that my current generation of students know is Akshaya Tritiya. For them, Akshaya Tritiya is the starting of Badrinath temple. That nobody knows. But Akshaya Tritiya, Titan has made it very nice. That's the time when you buy gold for your sister or your wife. Okay, so that is what it is. But I think much more interesting stuff I want you to know. You know, you kind of, this is something which you take it for granted. But what you don't realize is, one thing which is there is the most expensive part. It is not computers, it is not software, it is not chips, it is not hardware. It is actually something called a glass surface on the top. It is called Gorilla Glass. Because we all use touch, right? So touch, if you don't have the right glass, it will be so dusty, you would never be able to work. You see, you can read extremely small letters, right? Because the glass is so well. So that comes out of a company called Corning. And when Steve Jobs decided to announce Apple iPhone in 2005, he fixed 2006-07, he has to launch it. But there was no way, and he is the person who is credited to have come up with this brilliant idea called zoom and pinch. See, touch is not new. All of you would have seen elevators and ATM have touch. But this touch is fundamentally different. Pinch and zoom, right? So in order to do that, you need a Gorilla Glass. So you need glass which is as good as a Gorilla. And normally what you are conditioned to think, glass means it will break. He said, look, can you have glass which doesn't break like steel? That is what Gorilla Glass is all about. You can go and discover. Okay? But what we are expecting to do, the next generation of material science, so already people are working on, and I think in the next about 10-20 years, we'll stop producing steel from the new iron ore. Okay? Already you all have seen in our apartment complexes, 70% of the water is recycled, right? All of our bathroom water is recycled, right? So people are saying that we have enough steel already, we don't have to make new steel. So we'll recycle. So recycle nickel, recycle aluminum, etc. So it is all about recycling. So it is actually possible to do that. But once again, I want you to discover IKS. Okay, all of you go to Delhi, you see Qutub Minar. How many of you notice there is a pillar that has not rusted for 500 years? It is not by default, it is by design. I want you to realize this. It is by design. Unfortunately, we don't know the design. But unless you start looking for, you won't get the design. Okay? Do take a look at, my slides are available somewhere, I will give it to the bank will put it. So do take a look at Ashok's book. Okay? So, transport. Okay? Again, life will be so miserable if you don't have things like this today, right? None of us would have been able to come to Bangalore from Bangalore without the planes. And within Bangalore, we wouldn't have been able to kind of travel without the trains. And from a train station or airport, we wouldn't have been able to come to the venue without the car. So we just take it for granted. Right? But soon, we will have smarter stuff. We will have electric vehicles, and this one is just not only electric vehicle, that is what is called Google driverless car. You don't need a driver. Okay? You don't need to drive. You simply say where you want to go. See, whatever you are doing on a map, you can do it actually in real. See, you are able to do it on Google Map, right? You are going from here to there. That you will be able to do. But to me, more interesting than that, in fact, some of the Indians are doing this. There are solar planes so that you don't have to put aviation turbine. Right? And I don't know how many of you watched the Beating the Retreat of 2022. This is a drone show by a startup from IIT Delhi. 1,000 drones. So already you would have seen in Chennai, one startup from IIT is actually saying that look, you can go from Anna Nagar to T Nagar in 10 minutes for 150 rupees. You take off and land. Okay? So, question is there are regulations, etc. It will take a while. But I think you remember that 300 years back, we wouldn't have imagined a world where you can get out of the car, get out of the house, get into the car and drive. Okay? Something similar will happen in what's called personal planes. But I don't want you to forget, these things also happen. Right? So we had great chariots. So Arjuna was not only a charioteer, somebody was there to build a chariot for him. Okay, this is Lord Krishna and Bhishma, and much more important stuff. We have a company called Pushpak, but we don't have Pushpaka Vimana still. Okay, but go and discover. Okay? And then as I wrap up, so 5G is coming, and you know, life has become so different, right? So can you imagine life without it today? In fact, I do a normal experiment with my students. On the day one, I go to the class and I ask the student, I said, look, randomly I pick up one student's phone. I said, look, I guarantee privacy, I will keep it like this. I won't even know whether there is a phone call. I won't touch the phone. But you take it when you find you cannot live without it. So 2005, it was about 3.5 hours. By 2015, it is 3.5 minutes. So people cannot live without a phone for 3.5 minutes. That's what we are done. Okay? And of course, satellite communication. Lots of things happen behind. I don't want to again tag you with the details. And of course, and something I feel particularly happy about Karnataka. So 25% of the iPhones in the planet will be made in Karnataka. So nice. 6G is coming. But I also want you to know something special happening in Karnataka. I happen to be an advisor. Okay, so it's interesting. 4 surgeons, not surgery. They did MS surgery, but they hold a profession called intensivist. Okay, this is a term which I did not know until 2-3 years back. So they are the intensive care specialists. 2 from United States, 2 from Australia. They run a company called Cloud Physician. Okay? What communication can do? You know what? Today, there are intensive care units in Assam which are monitored from Bangalore. Possible today. And more interesting stuff, these people tell me that their market is just not India. They want to market it to United States. So one of the things which I learned from them, you look at the United States, we complain about doctors not going out of urban centers to rural area. This is a problem even in the United States. The doctors are concentrated on West Coast, East Coast, little bit in Seattle, little bit in Dallas. Central one, big hollow. Okay? So they expect to sell this solution even to the United States. Okay? And this is something which, once again, we forget. You all know the first webmail was a hot mail from a person called Sabir Bhatia, once again in Bangalore. It was the first cloud mail. But who actually thought of the cloud mail first? Happens to be Kalidas. And what a nice name, Meghadutam. Right? But I think I want you to take a look at it. Go and Google this. Even today, there is a pigeon post which is operating in Odisha. Okay, so don't underestimate that there are other forms of it. Okay, and last but not the least, okay, whatever happened to technology in music, I think some of you at least are old enough to recognize. Our students have no idea what is a Walkman, what is a tape, what is a CD, etc., etc. Because they are all only MP3 fellows. Okay, but something else, of course, iPod is also kind of going away because all the phones are doing this function. And All India Radio is a streaming radio, right? Ghana, AAR, etc. So I think we have completely changed. But wait for this. Okay, there are some of you, because we are going to just listen to amazing music, so I should write down. But you know, the MP3 is something which you should know. You know, MP3 patent gave more income to Germany than all the patents put together. Okay, one patent. In fact, I had the privilege of hosting one of the founders in my office. Okay, so it's amazing, MP3. Okay, so what happens is MP3 actually stands for layered compression. Okay, it is still compression. So in a technical term, it is called lossy compression. That means a few things which will miss out. At that time, because space was important, we need to have more songs in an iPod. We also need to transmit more with less cost, etc. But today, those things are going away. So people are experimenting with no lossy compression. So much larger files, but the music will be better. The connoisseurs. And in fact, go and discover our good friend, the Facebook founder, is actually using some very sophisticated stuff. It will start compressing depending on the type of music which you like. So it will fine tune it for your personalized music. And much more important stuff is, you can have, see, Ghana is there, but why can't I have my own music station? I want to have my Ghana. I don't want to have Ghana from somebody. Possible today. And last but not the least, so I want you to realize that at least this is something which, please, each one of you spend at least 10 minutes on Wikipedia. Raga is an unusual contribution from India. There is no equivalent in any other form of music. Right? I think, how did we get it? I think something must be there. Kuch hona chahiye na, as the someone say, kopdi ke andar kuch hai. Otherwise we wouldn't have made it. So do discover. And of course, the very classical Melakarta stuff, and of course we the computing guys like it because it is 2 power 64. Okay? So in some sense, what I did was I kind of took you around like the Nepal pilot, showed a lot of stuff. So now it is time for us to learn, and I just want you to take a look at this. So make it a quick summary. Typical life, you get up in the morning, you can't do anything without water. So there is a dam. And these days, first thing you do after brushing your teeth, you open your phone, right? So without a phone, you can't do. And I think before you realize it is time for breakfast, you need some food. That's where Swaminathan will provide. Okay? And then most of us live in an apartment, so we need an elevator to kind of go down. And as you go down, you need a car or a metro, so you kind of go to work. And okay, I'm just taking fun of my students. So what do the kids do after going to work? They just listen to MP3 music and somebody pays for them. So that is what they do. And sometimes they also do some coding. And of course, they realize that these days, learning is not sufficient. Having a BTech or an MTech is not sufficient. They also have to do continuous learning. So you kind of enroll for an upgrade. Right? So technology touches your life everywhere. Okay? So this is what, okay, so 45 minutes, I took 46 minutes, sorry. And I do hope that you found some value in it. And of course you might ask this question, is technology all positive? Clearly not. So there are issues of privacy, issues of terrorism, issues of, faking. But all that I would say is I'm an incorrigible optimist. I think that the problems which we have created, we also have the ability to find a solution. We find solutions for all of them. But this is my personal appeal, okay? Do spend some time in the IKS and do spend some time with your children. That it is not that we were such a broken country, we had nothing, we are all fools and idiots only. We have amazing stuff. We are fools and idiots only to the extent that we did not know that we have jewels in our pocket. Okay? Go and discover. Thank you. Thank you.